After more than 2 decades on death row, a black inmate in Mississippi is asking the United States Supreme Court to toss that conviction once and for all. He says the prosecutor intentionally kept African Americans off the jury again because it had happened before. Justice is hearing arguments today in the case of Curtis Flowers. Curtis Flowers has had 6 trials, 6 of them for the same murders. Back in 1996, investigators say Flowers gunned down 4 people at a furniture store after he got fired. Flowers has maintained his innocence. In trial after trial after trial after trial after trial, 5 of them, the jury was either hung or the verdict was overturned because of what the courts repeatedly called misconduct by the prosecutor. In one instance, Mississippi's Supreme Court called the jury selection, quote, as strong a case of racial discrimination as we have ever seen. Again, this was the Supreme Court in Mississippi. In Flowers' most recent trial, the jury that convicted him had but 1 black juror. Prosecutors argued they had legitimate reasons to keep other black people off the jury because they had connections to the case. Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito calling the case troubling with a, quote, really disturbing history, unquote. And for the first time in years, Justice Clarence Thomas uttered words during the arguments. Our senior judicial analyst, Judge Andrew Napolitano, was here. First of all, what did he say?
He asked a question about statements made at the trial by defense counsel. Namely, did defense counsel make a timely objection to the systematic exclusion of African Americans from the jury? And the answer was yes. But you're right. He doesn't believe, I've discussed this with him many times, he doesn't believe in asking questions. Right. He thinks oral argument is basically fluff. But in this case, he had a specific question and he asked it. Correct. So now, here's the thing with this case. They tried this 5 times, same people involved. Right. And this 6th time, you get a certain number of strikes. You know, when you watch court shows, you know, during voir dire, each side gets a number of strikes, and they have to be strikes for, you know, all the strikes are black people. Correct. There is no inference from that other than a racial one. And the Supreme Court ruled in 1986, long before the events in this case took place, that if there is an irrebuttable racial inference, that is, if there's no explanation to negate the racial inference, no explanation as to why each of these people was
outside of race.
Outside of race, correct. Thank you, Shep. And there's a conviction. The conviction has to be overturned and a new trial ordered. Shep, I have never heard of a case where a person's been tried 6 times. They are not going to order a new trial.
Well, they said that after the 5th time.
Right. The whole purpose of the double jeopardy clause is to prevent the state from repeated efforts to convict because of mistakes it made in previous trials. I think from the arguments made by Justice Alito, arguably one of the most conservative and traditionalist members of the court, this case is over. Now, in the meantime, he's been in jail during all of this. He's been in jail for 22 years for a crime for which he has not validly, lawfully been convicted.